David J. Maloney. This week, David talks with singer and songwriter Livingston Taylor. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home, and I would normally say our studio audience to the weekly show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. I say normally because we usually shoot the show before a small studio audience at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, but we are still shooting from home due to coronavirus concerns. We do hope to gain clearance to get back to our live-to-tape shows real soon. So, Discovery Plus has a new reality show called The Laundry Guy, in which laundry expert Patrick Richardson helps people remove stains from their clothes. Makes this little show look a whole lot more interesting, doesn't it? Justin Bieber performed at the California State Prison in Los Angeles County. Unfortunately for the prisoners, they were unable to escape. Michael Keaton is returning as Batman in the upcoming Flash movie. I don't want to say Keaton's getting old, but Robin, the Boy Wonder, will be played by Anthony Hopkins. Speaking of getting old, Queen Elizabeth just recently celebrated her 95th birthday, or what Prince Charles calls it, I'm still not a king day. The CDC and U.S. Food and Drug Administration are now recommending resumed use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine in the United States after a temporary pause. And in Beverly Hills, Johnson & Johnson will now come in a two-shot form. The first is a vaccine, and the second is Botox. Oh, and did you hear this? In Washington State, medical marijuana is now being permitted in public schools. So here's my question. If kids smoke medical marijuana on the playground, does that make it recreational marijuana? Lastly, a new study has been released, finding that 1 in 25 people suffer from a serious mental illness. Frankly, I'm not buying that statistic. I have 24 close friends, and none of them have a problem. Last week, we had singer-songwriter Livingston Taylor on the show. We talked about his upbringing, musical start, brother James Taylor, and his music. The interview went a little long, and we had so much more to cover. So we decided to make it a two-parter, and the second part of that interview is coming up next. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back with Livingston Taylor.
Jump up, join in again, shoulders up, stick out your chin, elbow grease and soap.
So, I Will Be in Love with You from your album Three-Way Mirror made it in the top 40. What was the story behind that song?
The story, I remember very clearly writing the chorus of it, and I was sitting in a living room with a couple of friends of mine, and often I have songs find their kernel in groups of people. People have asked me during the COVID if I've been writing much, and the answer is not very much. I write so I can express and have communication with other people. There is no point in writing it for myself. I write it in anticipation of being able to deliver it to others.
Did you have any idea that I Will Be in Love with You was going to be the hit off the record? I mean, I know that I've spoken with some artists and they just know that's going to be the one. Other times they're like, well, we had a different one lined up for second and third, and this was like sixth on the album, and then it just took off.
Yes, I had no idea that would be the choice, or that would be the song. There are songs on the record, on that particular record, Three-Way Mirror. I like I Will Be in Love with You fine. There are others that I like more. How Much Your Sweet Love Means to Me, or I'll Come Running. Again, it's not me making the decision. It's me in concert with lots of others, with people who have to sell it, with people who have to promote it, who are. You don't live in a vacuum in this stuff. There's a large team, and they all have to be in reasonable simpatico to move ahead.
So at some point you toured with Linda Ronstadt, and
Yes.
and you toured with Joni Mitchell as well. Joni Mitchell is by far, I think, Court and Spark would be one of my 5 Desert Island albums.
Yeah, no question.
What was it like in at that time touring in with those people?
Well, again, in retrospect, it is their mythology lends a mystique to the time, but at the time, no. I was Joni and I were was early in my career, early in her career. We were doing we did a couple of club dates. We did a date at Boston University. It was I played with plenty of other people who whose notoriety never went so high, so you're not asking about them. It was I'd like to say that there was a sense of magic.
So you went on to get your own show, This Week's Music, and
Yes.
and it's funny because Tom Chapin had his own show and he was on it, and you guys are friends.
Yes.
So it seemed in some ways you guys kind of had some similar paths. What are some of your memories from that time of your life doing that show?
Well, I did a show called This Week's Music, and it was in to sort of compete with. This was just in the earliest days of video, and we had. I remember one of the. There was a band called Bon Jovi that came on, and Billy Ocean, and it was fine. It was not a particularly momentous show. It lasted 13 weeks or so, and then didn't generate the revenue. And it was just another adventure along the way. There have been many of them.
Is there a song that you enjoy, or should I say that gives you joy playing more than any other, whether that be one of yours or somebody else's?
Well, certainly, certain songs are beautifully assembled. You know, love it. Down in Jamaica, they got lots of pretty women. Steal your money and break your heart. Don't so soon in love with old Sam, taking from the fire to the frying pan. On and on. So On and On by Stephen Bishop as well. What about, oh God, this song by Laura Nero. Let's go down by the grapevine, drink my daddy's wine. Good morning. Down by the grapevine, drink my daddy's wine. Good morning. Morning. Oh, sweet blindness, a little magic, a little kindness. Oh, sweet blindness, all over me. Please don't tell my mother that I'm a saloon and a moonshine lover. Come on, baby, do a slow float. You're a good looking riverboat. Ain't that sweet, that blindness good to me? Oh, and ain't that sweet, that blindness good to me?
That's just awesome.
When the COVID hit, I started a show called the Livingston Taylor Show. And so So I wrote a theme for that, which I very much enjoy playing. It says, with one wave of that mighty hand, the stormy seas were parted. It's gonna be so easy. Let's get started. It's the Livingston Taylor Show. It's the Livingston Taylor Show. You never know where it's gonna go. It's the Livingston Taylor Show. Is he sinking in a boat? Is he crashing in a plane? Does he even understand that the devil loves the rain? Is he quietly eccentric or actually insane? What stork brought that brain? It's the Livingston Taylor Show. It's the Livingston Taylor Show. We're out of time. We gotta go. We'll be back next week, I know. We're gonna turn on the tap and let it flow. It's the Livingston Taylor Show.
I want to, the audience of one claps. So let's talk about what you got going on now. So you've got this fantastic show that you've been putting on, and you just had your 1-year anniversary, right?
Yes, that's right.
How did the Livingston Taylor show come about, and what can we expect coming up?
Well, I think the show came about out of the lockdown of COVID. I had a memory in my brain between 1956 and 1962, the Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs show was broadcast for a half hour, once or twice a week, out of the Grand Ole Opry. And they had sponsors, and I like sponsors. I like commercial radio and television. I think that you learn a lot about a society, about a people, by what people think are valuable enough to advertise. I love going, for example, when I go to a town, or if I go to another country, I love going into hardware stores and seeing what people think is valuable in this community. What are they buying? What do they want? What do they need? There's a lot of information in commercial television and radio. So I decided that I would have sponsors on my show. And I used my sponsors. For instance, I had the American Society of Asphalt Producers, because I love pavement. I love asphalt, what it is. So I find things that interest me, and I decided to be sponsored by Evergreen Marine. That's a worldwide shipping organization, because I then read up on container shipping. And what you come to understand is that in the 60s, container shipping became viable, and it simply reduced the cost of shipping by 90%. 90%. And these, I love telling my my audience about these amazing unseen paths and truths and questions.
I find your perspectives on things like so different but so logical. And for example, when we were talking about the music executives, because of the fact that, you know, there seems to be this, for example, for a long time, Prince would wear slave on his face because he was combating that. But it seems you recognize the, I guess, the capitalistic, you know, survival of the fittest aspect of it, and the need for that talent to be cultivated. And another perspective that I found that was interesting is a perspective. I mean, a lot of us have siblings, and some of them are siblings that have done better than us. Some are siblings that have done worse. And your perspective when it comes to your brother James's success, I always found very, very interesting, because I've heard you say that you've never felt like you were ever in his shadow. And it was almost like a rising tide raises all ships perspective. Can you share that? Because I think there's something our viewers can benefit from your perspective that's different than I think some people's in that situation.
Again, one of the things that is a truth is that the cost of fame is stunningly high. The problem with being seen is it's very difficult to see when you're being seen. The idea that I've been able to live this life with my beautiful brother James taking the glare of the bright sun. And so, listen, he took me to the top of the mountain with him. It's not like I'm not up there. And but I get to be in the shadows. I get to watch the adventure, be on the adventure. I remember one time somebody, not knowing it was me, sort of lamenting the fact that Livingston Taylor had to live in James's shadow. And I said, well, it's true, but let's be very clear. James doesn't get to fly his airplane. I get to fly mine. I love, above all else, the freedom to go and do what I want, where I want, when I want. The level of freedom that I have is stunning. And I assure you, Prince's sense of being a slave was not, he might have blamed the record company, but he was a slave to the life he created. He was a slave to his own celebrity. That was not that he could choose anything else, but he chose it because he was, he could choose nothing else. I have other choices. And all I care about, what I care about in this world, I care about many things, but I love knowing how things work. I love distilling things down to that simple point, to understanding the value of a gatekeeper, of walking into a gallery with a portfolio of paintings and having that gallery owner, having her look at you and take out 2 of your 50 paintings and go, I like this and I like this. The rest of it sucks. I can't sell it. Come back when you've got 50 of these and you will have a show. Welcome to curating art. And you can like it or not like it. What the internet allowed was the circumvention of the getting around. It allowed you to circumvent that reality. And listen, that's fine, but make no mistake, quality comes from wealth concentrating talent. That's why, because of the Catholic Church, you can go to the Sistine Chapel today and enjoy Michelangelo's work. By the way, there was an architect, there was a builder, there were craftspeople who built the Sistine Chapel, and the Catholic Church was willing to pay money enough that it exists and lasts to this very day, and they've been willing to maintain it. So let's be clear as to how this stuff happens.
Now, when you refer to your students, it's because you teach at the Berklee School of Music in Boston.
I am presently winding down, given my my dotage, but yes, I taught for 30 years at the Berklee College of Music.
I hadn't realized that it was that long.
It
now,
was a long time.
So I'd like to go to a commercial break and then come back and maybe have you close out the show with a song. Can you do that for us?
I certainly can, and you know how I feel about commercial breaks, very positively.
We'll be right back with Livingston Taylor. That is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. A very special thanks to our special featured guest, Livingston Taylor, for joining us.
David, I've had such a wonderful time being with you and thinking about your beautiful viewers, and thanks for letting me be a part.
So you're going to close out the show for us with a song. What song are you going to close out?
I'm going to close out this show with a song called Never Lose Hope. Never Lose Hope. And when I was writing this song, I had a complicated melody, and I thought that simple lyric would be so pleasant. Never lose hope. Not realizing how much hope I was going to need. To think I could rhyme the word hope through an entire song. You can do it till the dream comes true. You can do it till the sky goes blue. I know it's dark, but in your heart there's a light that will see through. Here's a melody to help you cope, even when you're at the itty-bitty end of your road. Jump up, join in again, shoulders up, stick out your chin, elbow grease and soap. Oh, never lose hope. The new year starts tomorrow. The past is done its worst. No need to hide, the world's so wide. Water for your thirst. Hey, even Boston lost its curse. Saddle up and start to ride. Giddy up, you found your stride. Gallop away on this beautiful day. It was all inside. You toughed it out and made it through. And you stayed true to you. You're on the other side. You left behind your foolish pride. Your name's in the envelope. Oh, never lose. Oh, never. Oh, never, never, ever lose hope.
I am so glad you did that song. It just seems so apropos right now.
Well, it was really fun spending time with you, David. Thanks.
Thank you so much for being on the show.